Yay! Hi, everybody. We are back. I have once again hijacked Timmy's Upset the Gram. And so I'm sorry, guys. I am back. You know, Instagram is not letting me be great. They're just not. They just said your account is too new. And so you got to wait before you can go live and be a big girl. So I'll probably be hijacking Upset the Gram for a few more days. So, hi guys. Thanks for letting me barge in Timmy's world. I love you all. I hope you are doing amazing tonight. It is Friday night, so I know we are probably going out or hanging out or watching a movie. And I am going to be here continuing on with what we've been doing. We've been doing Meet Your Mentor Week for the Mentor You platform. And so if you joined us last night, we had an amazing night with Dr. Sarai Crane and Rory Rogers. So if you didn't get to see that, I'd love for you to go back and check it. I'm sure it's right in there. Hi, everybody. I hope you're doing so good. And so, yeah, so we're just going to hop on in, and I'm not going to hold you all long at all. I am going to introduce you all to a new mentor tonight. And she is on the platform. She is amazing. Last night we had a doctor with Dr. Sarai. Tonight we have another doctor. And so this lady we have, I'm going to see if she's on here. Let's see. Her name is Dr. Amy Burton, and she's a medical doctor. And she's going to be on our platform. I think she's coming in a second. I tried to accept her. There she is. Hi, Amy.
Hi.
Good, good, good. So, Dr. Amy Burton is so great. I won't go into all the details of what she does because she's a busy woman. But she's a medical doctor. She's a pediatric doctor, a specialist actually, that specializes in the whole endocrine system and childhood diabetes and all that. But most importantly, she has a passion for you. She has a passion for people, and she wants to see people. She just wants to help them. So when we all talk with doctors, sometimes they're so caught up in their medical stuff and doing what they do. But Amy is amazing, and she is like, I actually want to talk to people about some other stuff, you know. And so she's on our platform with the other mentors. And so I want to welcome Amy Burton. Woo! Amy is going to be, she has two channels on our platform. And she is going to be talking about single parenting and how she is this successful doctor and trying to raise these kids single. And she's going to talk about career development and education. So for those of you that are, you know, going out of college, coming out of high school, going into college, career development. Do I start my own business? Do I go into the workforce? Do I go into corporate America? Do I not? Maybe I'm not built for corporate America. I might be more that's a start my own entrepreneur. And what does that take? And so we're going to get into both of those topics because she has a passion for both. She mentors a lot of people in the career and development. And so we want to make sure that we get to that. And she's also going to talk about what it's like being a single parent. All right, some of you out there, I'm sure there's some of you out there that are single parents that may have been married and got divorced. And now you got to live life. You just got to live life without your spouse. And sometimes divorce would be a reason that caused it, or sometimes even being widowed. And we don't talk about when you're widowed and you're single because of that. And so I just want to make sure that we have some support. And I have Dr. Amy on because she's here to help support and walk through life with you, and to know that you don't have to do it alone, and that, yeah, there's going to be some hard times, but you can do it. So come on, Dr. Amy, get on in
Right.
here. Get
Well,
on in here.
okay. Well, thank you for having me. I've very blessed to be part of this platform. I'm excited for what you're doing. Just to know a little bit about me, yes, I am a physician, but I don't feel like that's first and foremost in my life. I think I'm a child of God first, and of course, I'm a mother. That's my next job, and then my career. So I think just kind of the type of people I've come across in life, I feel like these are both, while I take care of people during my day job, from a medical, physical sense, I feel that oftentimes, whether it's at church or in personal life, or even some of the families I've come across in my own office, are always asking for my advice as far as what do you think I should do for school, or people who are maybe pivoting in their career, because I feel that I've done all those things. People may think, oh, you're a doctor. It kind of you should just be able to get a job anywhere. And that's not necessarily, it's not just about getting a job. It's about finding, your purpose. And so I think, just because you have a profession doesn't mean that you're doing what you are called to do.
Come on.
So I think, I started off very traditional. I went to, plenty of years of school. And when I finished, I went to what I thought was the next natural step, which is probably very, corporate America, which was a children's hospital, because I'm a pediatric specialist.
Yep.
So I joined a children's hospital, and it was fine. But I just knew that I have gifts that weren't all being used there. I didn't feel fulfilled. I didn't feel that this was how God wanted it to be done. And no slight against, what they had set up there. But I feel, especially in the times and seasons that we're going into right now, that God is asking us to do things differently.
Yeah.
And so I feel like as mentors in the kingdom, we are called to lead people to do what God has called them to do, not just what makes sense on paper. So I think, people may think, oh, I want to be, I want to open my own bakery. How is a doctor going to help me, be a mentor or progress in that? And I feel, because I worked both in corporate America, and then I had to pivot when my children were quite young. At that point, they were 3 and 6, and I left to start my own business. And I didn't have a blueprint. No one really does what I do. I'm not saying doctors don't start their own practices, but specifically in my specialty, nobody does. And even when I talk to people about it, many people said, you probably won't succeed.
Now, I just want to pause you really quick, because that's a big thing, Amy, to leave something that and that you're comfortable with and that you're familiar with, to now completely transition and go to something different. Like, fear holds so many people back from that. And really, any transition, fear will bind you. Like, what gave you the willpower to make that big switch? Because that's a big deal.
I think for me, I realize that each day I'm leaving my house and my 2 kids to go to choose to spend 8 to 10 hours somewhere.
Yep.
And what those hours I was spending there I felt like my patients were not getting what they needed. And then I would come home, put my kids to bed, and then work for several more hours. And I just did not feel that this was, worth my investment. If I'm going to leave my family, then I need it to be, what I feel God has called me to do. So yes, there's definitely fear there. But, God doesn't say there's not going to be fear. Oftentimes he calls us to do things and we have to push through the fear.
That's right.
And many times when we are called to do things, there's going to be a lot of pushback. That doesn't mean, that we're going in the wrong direction. It actually often means we're going in the right direction.
That's good.
The easy path would have been for me to stay somewhere where I had a guaranteed salary, where I would have guaranteed vacation.
Right.
Especially, then 3 years later, going through a divorce, that would have been that would have been the easier path. So, after starting my business, my marriage started struggling, and, despite our efforts, it failed. And during that time, I was just starting my business. I wasn't making enough to support 2 kids.
Right. which that's scary.
Right.
That is fretful for any woman, or spouse, but any woman to now just be on your own, and then you got your kids, now you got divorced, you switched over a new job. Like that's a lot of burden and a weight to carry.
Um, but I think that's just a testimony to God. And that's what
Come
God
on.
wants you to do. He wants you to step out in faith so that he gets the
He
glory.
does. He does.
And even honestly, when I was going through my divorce attorneys, when, they look at all your financials to figure out things. And when we started, I was making very little money. And so they were, trying to divvy up resources. By the time the divorce was getting finalized, they said, Amy, I don't know what happened this last 6 months, but your income has doubled.
Wow.
And so, because of that, things were split up the way, however they were. But all I could say is that was God providing for me in a
Come
moment.
on.
And if he has asked you to do something, he is not going to
That's
leave you there.
right.
And he
That's
will
right.
provide.
Yes, he will.
It didn't look that way when all of that was happening.
Yeah.
And I thought, man, God, I started this business, and now my marriage is falling apart. How am I gonna, I couldn't pay the mortgage on the house. But by the time the process was done, I was able to, because God multiplied what I
Ain't
had.
that something? That's the goodness of God, is when you're going through something, it feels like eternity. I mean, it literally feels like eternity, and like, when is this going to be over? And then when it is over, it is like, oh Lord, you were there with me all along, because you feel like you're alone,
Right.
and it feels long, but he's with you. He is definitely with you, and he shows it. He doesn't always tell us how it's going to turn out when we're in the middle.
Exactly.
Right. But
Right.
there's always an end.
Right. And I think that's why mentorship is important, because a lot of times I think of myself, there's a lot of us that God has called to do things, and we're trailblazers. There are not people who have done it before us.
Come on.
So what I've done, no one else has done. I called and I asked people, I tried to get direction, and no one's like, no, I've never done it that way, or I didn't get support from a hospital, or I didn't do.
Right.
But I'm like, well, this is what God's calling me to do. So I put one foot in front of the other. But what we need to do, and on these types of, with a mentors and a platform like this, is to be able to support those who are taking a leap of faith.
Yep.
Because you may not have anyone else who's done what you've done.
Right.
And maybe I haven't done what you've done, but I've been in positions where I've had to, find an office space, get a loan, do it with young children. Those are the types of things where just finding your people to be able to push you when you're not really sure how to get the next step forward.
Need to try.
Right.
You need a tribe. You need a support group. You're right. You need people to help push you, because sometimes when a person doesn't know, they feel limited in what they can tell you. But when you have experience, that's why I created Mentor You. I put people with experience that are in these areas, because then they know, like, you know what? I know you're scared, and you're going to do it anyway. You know what I mean? I know you don't. I know it. It doesn't seem like God in there. He's there. You're going to do it anyway. And we need that people to push. That's how we grow. We grow with resistance. And so when you have somebody there to be a support, to push you, to challenge you to go forward, that's what we need. That is what we need. And so for you, where you are, you didn't get there by yourself.
Right. And I mean, God usually aligns you with the right people at, with each, step that you take.
Yep.
So when I first started, I met someone that, helped start practices. And I would just start asking. You have to ask questions. If you don't ask for help, you're going to be feeling like you're on an island, and
That's
you can't
right.
do it yourself. So you may not find somebody who does exactly what you do, but maybe you find someone else who starts a business. Maybe you found someone who left a job of 20 years and decided to start something on their own.
Right.
Those are the people you need to partner up with. So
right.
I just feel like, because I've gone through that, and then having a business now for 10 years, I've had to pivot multiple times. I've had to move locations. I've lost employees. I've hired, I've fired, and had to grow and learn how to scale my business for the growth. So all of those things, I think, can be helpful to those who, in any field. And then I think just also navigating it as being a mother,
Yeah.
you know, and being a woman. And this is not just directed towards women, but
Yeah.
I just think a lot of times as women, we don't get the same type of advice and career development that men do.
Yeah.
Um, you know, when I was in academics or at the children's hospital, you know, you have, or when you're in corporate America, you have meetings quarterly or whatever it may
Yep.
be to discuss your career and where it's going. But they don't really discuss your family, what's happening at
Right.
home. Those aren't the types of things that you're discussing when you're discussing how to advance in your career. They're
Right.
literally just looking at your CV, your resume, and
Right.
thinking you need a few more, you know, a little more experience in this field.
Yep.
You need to try to move up
Yep.
here. But God's ways aren't
Come
man's
on.
ways.
Come on.
So I think having spiritual mentors, I'm not saying you don't need, you know, advice from someone at your company, but having spiritual mentors, it takes you another path, and it takes you, I think it elevates you
Yep.
at a different level. Because there's a lot of people that come into my office and they're like, man, you've done a lot in, you know, a few years. I've never seen a practice grow this much.
Wow.
It's not me. It's because
Wow.
I listen to God.
Wow. Wow. So I want to stay right there, but I want to rewind something that you said,
Sure.
but I didn't want to interrupt too much. So, you know, you were saying that even as you had to go along your path and your journey, that you had to pivot several times
Yes.
and you had to change locations and, you know, move and hire and fire. Well, those are difficult things to do. What, what, um, what did you do to hold on to not let all those things discourage you and make you think, well, this isn't God, so let me quit, or this isn't the Lord if I'm coming against all this, like I got to move again? Well, maybe I'm not doing something right. What caused you to not doubt that it was God, even in these different transitions and multiple
Right.
transitions? Most people can't even handle one transition. And so the fact that you handled multiple transitions, how did you do it without being so discouraged to say, yeah, no, I'm not, I just forget it. Let me just go back to corporate America. Basically giving up and
Oh,
quitting.
yes. I mean, even 10 years in, I am still getting challenged like that. I mean, I would say even the last few months, you know, I've had people come offering to buy my practice, which would make my life so much simpler.
Easy.
Yes. But the reason is, and as soon as you asked me this question, I just thought of the time where the Israelites crossed the Jordan, and God said, "Put these stones here to remember,
Come
you
on.
know,
Yep.
what,
Good.
so your children and those after you will remember what I have
So
done for
good.
you." And so
So
there
good.
are stones that God has placed in my life from the starting my practice from scratch with
Yes.
no experience,
Yes.
um, you know, no real money, just going
Yeah.
to a bank and asking them if they would support me.
Yes.
Those are the stones that remind me of, hey, you started from nothing.
Come on.
And yes, maybe you lost, you know, the other doctor that worked with you and you lost half
Yep.
of your revenue.
Yep.
Um,
Mm,
but if you started there and God took you this
yep.
far, you can't give
Come
up
on.
now.
Come on. That's so good, Amy. That is so good.
So you have to
That is good.
remember where he's brought you from.
That's
And
right.
that's another reason to have a mentor or a tribe with you, because they'll
To
remind
remind
you.
you. Yep. To remind you where
Yes.
you were. And even though it's hard, it was hard back then on the first stone, but you made it to this one.
Yes.
And now
Yes.
this next transition
Right.
will be hard. We're going to place this
So,
stone here to remember,
yeah.
God, you brought me here. Now I know you'll take me to the next one. That's so good, Amy. That is so good. And so I think we forget that part of placing these pillars
Right.
and thanking God for the next transition. Instead, we get frustrated and we complain to God that we have to go through a transition.
Yes.
And so transitions just mean the next best step for you. And I love that. I love that because a lot of people fail and falter through change. Most people can't handle change. And so they begin to wiggle and their weaknesses flare up in change. Their
Yes.
weaknesses flare up in transition. And so when you can say, no, I'm going to look at this transition. I'm going to look at this change. I'm going to look at this part of my life as a, as a difference, as a, okay, God, you're doing something better, you're doing something good. I can't be weak in this moment. I can't give up in this moment. and I got to strengthen myself. And so I love that, Amy. That is great. And clearly you have had that perspective through all your transitions, because you've done quite a bit, and it's hard. You said lose half your income. That's a big deal. I know right now, if we were to lose half our income, like that's a big deal. That's a big deal for anybody watching. If you make 80, 90,000 a year and you jump down to 40 and 50 or 45, that's a big cut. That's a huge adjustment. And you had to walk around that. You had to work
Right.
around that and
Right.
figure that out and trust God through that process. And so in order to do that, your anchor has got to be strong. You got to know who your source is, for sure.
Right. Right. And I think, he starts from small beginnings
Mhm.
so that it's part of the stretching
Yeah.
process.
Yeah.
Um, that wineskin can't be stretched overnight.
Come on.
So, he presses you, it makes you into wine
Yep.
so that, the new wineskin can be, slowly stretched. And that's what I feel is that when I started, my challenges were to me seemed large, but when I look back on them, those were small.
Mm-hmm.
For me, seeing 5 patients a day and trying to figure out things with 1 employee,
Right.
I mean, that seemed insurmountable at the time. Now I have 8 employees. I see 20 patients a day.
Yep.
I have I had another physician. I have a PA. I now own my own office
Come on.
space. There's things that I could not have done that, 8 or 9 years ago.
Right.
It's because of all the transitions and the changes and the challenges I came through.
Yep.
That God prepared me for what is now.
Come on.
Just like you were speaking of how it took you 10 months to build this,
Yes.
mentor you. And just like God grows a baby inside of you for 9 months, and a baby isn't done right away. It's because
Right.
your body has to change and grow and expand.
Right.
That's the same way, when I first started, I remember, people telling me, oh, why are you wasting your money on rent? Why don't you get your own office space?
Yep.
Because I wasn't ready for that.
Right.
It took me 10 years
Right.
to get to a point where I could get my own office space, be able to pay for all the expenses with
Yep.
that. And, and to be able to support it and to know what to do
Yep.
next and to have, the connection. So that's where having, mentors in your life to help you, push you when you need to be pushed, or tell you, hey, that's not the right time.
Yeah.
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 Because
And you
sometimes,
being a mom at this time too.
right.
And still raising some kids. Because
Yes.
how old are your boys
They're
now?
now 14 and 17.
And how old were you how old were they when they were when you were going through all this transition?
Yes. So when I started my practice, they were 3 and 6.
3 and 6, starting your own practice and then transitioning them.
Yes. So I would drop them off at school, one at daycare, one at school, and I would listen to, it was like a business development, like they were CDs. That shows you how old they were. But CDs, and my first office was 35 minutes away. So I would drop the kids off in the morning and just listen to how to start a business God's way. It was like a biblical.
On your way to work. On your way to work.
I got it from Gateway, and I would just listen to them because I didn't know I had never, they don't teach you business in medical school. So I didn't know what I was doing, but I got those CDs from Gateway and I just listened to them.
Yep.
And I just did one step at a time. And so that's what that's what you need when you're making any kind of pivot, whether it's from being a stay-at-home mom to starting, a job, or vice versa, or writing a book, or, these are the types of things that you, it's a leap of faith, and sometimes you don't know where to start, but having someone in your corner to tell you, well, I think you need to, meet with this person or join up with this person, have someone, encourage you to write it down, make it plain, write your vision. And that's what I do. So every year I write a vision for what I expect for next year. It doesn't always happen in the next year, but it happens, and God has always come through. So those are things I think that are just pointers that help, those who are, and it's not even an age thing. I wouldn't say younger or older. It's just like these stages of life.
That's so it is. Yeah. I love the writing the vision and making it plain, and seeing it, because if you see it, you'll believe it. You know what I mean? And saying it and speaking it. This is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to
Right.
do it. I was laughing with Timmy, or I was chuckling with him earlier today before I left. And here's what's interesting. The last job, like working in corporate America, that I personally ever had was back in 2004. When
Yes.
I left my job in 2004, I said, I will never work for anybody in corporate America again. If I work for anybody, it will be myself. Like, I will never
Yeah.
work for anybody again. And I haven't. It's been
Right.
20 years. And I have never worked for anybody but myself. And I refuse to, for me,
Yeah.
it's me. I'm that type of person.
Right.
I
No.
just am like, I'm not going to let somebody dictate to me how much they think I'm worth. And so I put the grind into the things that I am passionate
Yeah.
about. But I wasn't sitting here waiting for somebody to just drop something in my lap. And
Correct.
so, like you're saying, you didn't know what you had to do. You didn't know the steps you needed to take, but you did know enough to say, you know what? I better make sure that I am finding all the resources, find a podcast,
Right.
find a book, get a resource from somewhere. There are tools to say, hey, I need to learn what I don't know. And so through discipline and grit, Amy, that's what got you where you are now. You are a very successful doctor, right?
Yes.
You don't need any more patients. As you tell me, I don't need any more patients, which is a good
I mean,
problem to have.
yeah, it's a testament to God's
That's right.
goodness,
That's
his
right.
favor when, he orders your steps. And when you do what he has asked you to do, there is just a favor that you can't
Yep. Yep.
explain.
Yep.
Um,
You walk in
and
abundance now.
yes, that year I got divorced was actually the first year I remember because it was 2 or 3 months after my divorce was final. I was awarded one of Dallas's D magazine's, best
Oh,
physicians,
so great.
which is great. And, but you think you're at rock bottom and,
Right.
God shows
Yes.
you, he still got you.
Yes, he does.
And there's a favor on your life, even though it may look like you failed in, one
Yeah.
area.
Yeah.
And since then, that was 2017, I've gotten blessed with that award every year since then.
Come
And
on.
so,
Dr. Amy.
um, I just showing you that, what you think you may be, what something might look like a loss,
That's right.
but God is trying to show you that,
Right.
he can turn any
Yes, he
loss into a gain.
can. You ended up having, so your
Yes.
divorce happened and you got the award,
Right.
right? It's so bittersweet. And that's the tension of life.
It is.
You know what I mean? It's the tension of life. You have literally half of you was gone, and yet he fulfills in a different way a joy. He gives you a joy and award to say, you're going to keep going up from here. And I know this over here it's bleak and it's dead and it's done, but I want you to know you're in the right direction
Right.
and we're going to keep going higher. And so I love that. I love that. That's very bittersweet. But God has his ways.
He does.
He has his ways, and he's now blessed you so significantly because of that. And so I celebrate it. I celebrate it. Well, that's amazing. That is amazing. So now, you know what? We were intertwining
Yeah.
so much of your
Yeah.
story. We were saying that Dr. Amy's got 2 channels on the platform, and she's gonna be talking about single parenting and career and development, and 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 what do you do in both parties? Because she's done since 2017 was a divorce.
Yes.
Since 2017 to now, that's 7 years that you have been single parenting, and now you're probably in a season where you have to co-parent,
Right.
right? And now that can be difficult, right? So there's
Yes.
single parenting, and then there's single parenting having to share the kids and
Right.
co-parent. And so I want to know from you just briefly, if you care to share, how have your kids been able to manage, or how have they been in support of you, or how have they been even through this time, if you feel like sharing that right now?
Sure. Yeah. So, when we were going through all the divorce, I remember, we met with a family therapist,
Good.
and her key was, which is very important, during the process, after the process, you know, to always stay connected with a therapist.
Yeah.
But we went to a family therapist, me and my ex, and you know, one thing I remember her saying was that, you know, that you are still a family. It's just, you know, it's a reconstructed family.
Come on. It's
So
good. It's
I
good.
had, you know, that is what I remembered is
Yeah.
yes, me and, you know, their dad are not in the same house.
Right.
Um, but it's, the family is just, you know, it's divided in two homes, but we are still a family. And so I think that's what's kept my
Good.
kids grounded.
Yeah.
When they still see me, you know, I have two sons, their brother and their dad. They see all of us,
Right.
you know, as a family, and maybe a little different than other people's families.
Sure.
But I think that's what really navigated how I viewed everything in that lens.
Yeah.
It wasn't easy. There's a lot of things that I had to let go
Yeah.
of. You die to yourself often.
Yeah.
Um, and you realize this is not about me. This is not about proving, you know, what I'm
Yeah.
doing, what he's doing, nothing like that. It's about the kids.
Yeah.
And what they would need to be supported through all of this.
Yeah.
I always think that, you know, the children should not have to pay for decisions made by adults.
For the parents. Yeah.
Yes.
Sure.
And they didn't understand it. I mean, they were, you know, like 7 and 10 or, you know, so I think the way we navigated, or, you know, I specifically navigated that I think is to really remind myself that my children are not my possession.
Come on.
I think in a lot of family, whether you're married or not married, we see our children, those are my kids.
Especially when they're good.
Right, they're my kids.
Especially when their behavior
yes.
is stellar.
Yes.
Yeah, they're my kids. Yeah, they would love them. And then when they're
doing something wrong, they're your kids.
When they're doing bad, they are all yours.
Yes.
Yep.
And so I think we need to be reminded that these children that, you know, we have birthed or, you know, parenting are God's children that he has given us possession of. And so I think that made it easier. Like if there was, you know, something wrong or something, you know, there's always going to be miscommunication. Someone forgets something, someone didn't pick this up, or, you know, those things happen. But what I see with a lot of, you know, split families is that there's a lot of blame. And what I try to do, and I still do, even though my kids are much older now, is even though I may, you know, see something a certain way, I would never blame or talk about their dad in front of them.
Very good.
Because you have to think they are half their dad. And so when you speak bad about their father, they think that's directed towards them.
Right.
And so I feel that they think if you think this way of my dad, what do you think of me?
Yeah. And another thing, if you think so negative about him, then that makes me question your decision because you were with him.
Right.
You know?
Right. And so I think, you know, I think a framework for realizing that they were created in love.
Yeah.
And that even though our family is, you know, gone under some reconstruction, that, you know, there's still love there. You know, I don't always like the way things go. Okay.
Sure.
I don't have to like it.
Right.
You know, but I think it's important to respect their father. So that they respect their father. Right. You know, I don't play sides. They'll call me sometimes because I do handle most things. And so they'll call me and they're like, Dad did this or didn't do this. And I said, that's your father. Right. And he made that decision.
That's right.
The same that you would do if they were in your house.
That's right.
So yes. So I think there are a lot of things that it's so easy to get petty because you know, it's hurtful. It's very hurt. There are a lot of things that still bring up hurt, even for me 7 years later.
Oh, and you want to get petty. Sometimes you feel like this is a perfect opportunity to throw that shade.
Yes.
Yeah, I get it.
So I think it's just, I think your children need to see you, you know, showing respect so that they respect both parents. And also, I always think I want my kids to believe in healthy. Yes, my relationship didn't work.
Yes.
But I want them to have a framework for what healthy communication is like, what respect is like. You know, just just like you have to work with people that you may not, get along with,
That's right.
those are examples that you're, showing your children in everyday life. So I do feel that, my kids are now 14 and 17. I
Yeah.
think, there's times I ask them, do you ever feel sad that your parents are,
Yeah.
divided, that you have two homes? And honestly, they're very well adjusted.
Yeah.
They tell me they don't.
Yeah.
And I think part of it is it's very fluid.
Yeah.
There's no, this is my night, this is your night.
Right.
If someone needs to be picked up, I just do it.
Right.
If someone needs dinner, I just take care of it. I think, and I get it, the courts have to put some kind of order in place and say,
Sure.
you have them this day, you have them this day. But I think I'm a parent every
Come
day.
on. Yeah, you are.
So
Yep. Good. Very good.
that is what I have to remind myself.
Very good.
Even when they're at their house or it's whatever, I'm just like, well, you need a ride. Yeah, I had other plans. That's fine. I'm still your mom.
Yeah.
So those are the types of,
I am responsible. I created you. I brought you in this world. No matter what, I'm still going to be responsible for you. Understood.
And I'm not going to make them pay for something if, the other parent forgot on their night or whatever. I just, so those
you're not going to let the kids suffer because somebody was being neglectful, for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I get that.
So I think a lot of it is, having humility, letting go of pride, letting go of hurt, not letting your pain paint everything in your parental relationship.
Yeah, that's very good. Not letting your pain paint everything in your parental relationship. Very good. Because it will paint a whole story in every story, in every situation. And you did this last week, and I can't stand you. And you know what I mean? And every time something comes up, that pain will paint that story. You are right. That's very good. That is very good. Single parenting is hard. Parenting is hard. Parenting is hard when you're married. Parenting is hard when you're single.
Yes.
Parenting is hard when you're single and there's not even the other spouse to even do their part. Right?
When you're doing 100%.
Right. When there's only one parent in operation. That's hard.
And one thing I try to do is reflect on what didn't work in our relationship. What are some of the, maybe some of the generational, curses or things that, that created our situation. And so those are things I work hard to, speak about with the kids. I just say, this is something we need to work on. What was my part in it?
Right.
And so I think now that my kids are older, those are discussions we have.
Good.
We didn't have them, initially, but now that they're, talking to girls, and these are patterns we don't want repeated.
Right. Correct. Correct. We don't want to repeat negative behavior. Right. We don't want to repeat what didn't work. If it didn't work for me, I'm going to be able to tell you why.
Right.
That you don't fall into the same pitfall, and that's the goal. Again, this whole thing is about saving you from making the mistakes that I made, saving you from making the decisions that I made, that I can tell you this does not work. You know what I mean? I've seen this over and over again. You don't have to go this route. Now, if you choose to, you can't say that I didn't tell you.
Right.
You can't say I didn't warn you. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So, that's awesome.
And I think it's very important to have a mentor. No one tells you how to parent, whether you're parenting totally alone, co-parenting.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of advice on this topic.
Right.
And, in my own community, I'm Indian, so the divorce rate is very low. My parents told me that I was at fault. I was the reason for the divorce. That's just classic South Asian households.
Right.
So I don't have anywhere in my community to go to because this is not typical.
Right.
And then if I do bring it up, it's, usually blame.
Right.
So, or your kids turned out this way because of what you did, So
can I stop you right there?
Yes.
Pause you right there, because I understand this. And is it fair to say in your community, some like others, that they take more pride in staying married for the institution of marriage and what that presents, what we're presenting, than they're actually being happy in their married? So they would stay married miserable just to say we're not going to get divorced
Yes.
and be unhappy.
It's all about the, saving face.
They say
My
the
parents
face
still have a picture, a wedding picture of me up in their house
because you got divorced.
because they don't want anyone to know.
They don't want anyone to know.
And so what I tell
Wow.
people, even, that shame creates, many more
Yes,
problems
it does.
than putting
Yes, it does.
these types of things out in the open. And so people don't want to talk about being a single parent because it's shameful, or they feel shame, about it.
Yep.
Or there's the opposite, where I see a lot of women who are single women and they're like, go get him for everything, every penny,
Right.
deserve.
Right.
That's not the way either.
No.
God created marriage. Yeah. We live in a fallen world. They don't all work.
Right.
So how do we navigate this in a godly way?
Come on.
And
that's right.
It's not all about what can, the ex provide for me financially. No. What are they right. doing? It's right. What are we pouring into our children? Right. And they need a mother and a father. They do. And so, if the father figure isn't around, put them in, with men, yeah. That are at the church, or, we have some godly brothers, yeah, mentors, Yep, the mentors. Right. Yep. So those are things I think we have to navigate and get away from either I'm just going to do it all by myself and I don't need any help, or, trying to take your ex to, and get everything out of him. Right. I just think there's a middle ground, and I think we need, as as fellow Christians, we need to be able to support each other. Right. In discussing this, and that's the mature thing to do. Right. Yep. And realizing it's not about us; it's about the kids. Yeah. And the legacy that we're trying to build in our children. That's right. That's right. The legacy we are trying to build in them, 100%. I fully agree. That's so good, Amy. That is so good. That is so good. There's so many things you want to say. I just want to go back to, and it's like, okay, we'll be here. We'll be here all night because it will get off topic. But one of those hot topics for me is the shame. You know what I mean? And so many people suffer with shame, and they suffer it because of either their parents or their family lineage, and we have to live with that. You know what I mean? It's almost every action that we do. How is everything I do gonna make somebody else feel? Right. And that's not the way to live. That is not the way to live. And unfortunately, a lot of us suffer from that. But Lord have mercy. Okay. Carrying on, Amy. You are amazing. You are amazing. All right. So that was really good. That was a lot of great stuff. I mean, I think we covered quite a bit. Yes. Do you want to talk any more about the career and development? Do you want to talk anything about that? About how so many people come to you for advice on the direction you should go based on all your years of experience and all your pivots and all your turns and everything you've had to do. You are a mentor at work to everybody that is like, where do I go? How do I turn? What do I do? I know a lot of people come to you. You told me you're always talking about that. Do I know you don't give them all the same advice. Right. So how do you govern that? Because how do you tell them where to go? How do you tell them you should go to corporate America? You should start your own business. Do you just take the time to get to know them? What is your method of helping guiding people? And I know that it's not too late to transition or start or go your own route. And do you come across a lot of people that are older than 30 and 40 and 50 that want to make that change in their life? And do you encourage it or discourage it? Right. So I think the key is to help people navigate, different arenas of life is wisdom. Yeah. So I tell people there's a lot of smart people out there. Yep. But wisdom is hard to find. Yep. And so very good. I think just as Solomon prayed for wisdom and God blessed him with everything else. Yes, he did. I just feel like, God has blessed me with a wisdom and a discernment. And I think for me, when I meet people, whether that be someone in my clinic and it's an 18-year-old trying to figure out if he should, get his degree in IT or go to medical school or even just do trade school, those are things where I think some of it is getting to know the person. Yeah. knowing what their gifts are, what their vision is, what their calling is. Because I think a lot of times, whether it be your family background, how you're raised, I told you I'm Indian, so, I'm a doctor. I know that doesn't shock a lot of people. A lot of Indian people are either engineers or doctors. Let's just go with the stereotype. So,
Amy.
but I actually see a lot of Indian families in my clinic, and when I see all these young kids studying to be doctors, I'm like, is that really what you want to do? I mean,
Right.
are you doing that because of societal expectations?
Right.
Or are you doing that because you can't imagine doing anything else?
Right.
So
Right.
I think it's, when I meet people, it's asking the hard questions.
Yep.
I'm very direct.
Yep.
It's, cutting through all the noise
Yep.
of family, shame, pride.
Yep.
Sometimes we choose things for the wrong reasons.
For sure.
And I always tell people, yes, money is important. Don't get me wrong. But if you are just chasing a dollar bill,
right,
you will not be blessed.
That's
and
right. Come on.
So I think it's a purpose. So what I think of is we all have an answer to a problem. We are all a solution to a problem in this world.
Come on.
And so my job is to help you find what is the answer that you were put on this earth to give. Right.
Come on.
So it doesn't matter if you're 60 or 16.
Yep.
I think you just got to take some time to figure out what you were made for.
Right.
And if you follow what you were made for, then the money, the pathway, the blueprints, whether that's school or not school, whether that's doing your own business or joining a company, whether that's doing an internship, those all kind of flow once we figure out.
That's right.
What are you the solution to?
Come on. I love that. We are all made, we all have a solution to something.
Right.
What is your solution to this world? I love that. I love that. That is so good. That is so good. I love that so much. That is amazing advice, because that gives people that almost gives people a self-purpose. Oh my gosh,
right.
I am a solution.
The word purpose, is used, and people don't understand, what does that really mean?
Right.
What is your purpose?
Yeah.
And I'm going through this with my 17-year-old son. He doesn't, he wasn't sure. He has no idea what he wants to do. He's about to he's a year away from college. So, sometimes we go through, what don't you like?
Correct.
Okay, what could you not say? Sometimes that's easier than saying what you do like.
For sure.
We did some aptitude tests, and then, you have to know yourself. So sometimes finding a career means learning yourself better.
That's right. And so
I told him, you need to understand yourself better before you can understand where you need to go.
Come on. I love it. I love it.
Those are the things that being a mentor, and helping people. Career development is just a very broad term, but it's very much,
helping them find who they are and digging into their passion so that we can be effective.
Right.
So that we can be effective. And so hence, that's why we doing this. And that's why you have the channel. And I love it. Well, listen, Dr. Amy is on the Mentor You platform, and she has so much wisdom that she's going to talk to you all about. She's got a channel for career and development, and clearly she's got a channel for single parenting and being successful in business. And so if this was a topic for you tonight, you can find more there. She's going to be there every week, chatting it up with you and helping you walk through the process and helping you not be afraid to go through the transitions and reminding you to put those anchors down, and teaching you and just walking through life with you, how to navigate these kids while you're doing all that. And so, listen, I've got great news. So many of you were asking for Afterpay and all that. So guess what? It's up there. Afterpay is there. If you need it, it is on the site. And I have amazing news. We are working on getting everything translated into multiple languages. And so if you speak Spanish, if you speak Portuguese, we are working on getting everything done, and it being a multilingual platform so that no one has an excuse and we can expand our reach. So I wanted to make those announcements. We are going to be just, there's no excuse of you feeling alone or not having a resource or not walking through life. And so, Amy, thank you. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. We've pinned Dr. Amy's practice, although she's super busy, but she will be, that's her practice on there, but she will be at upsettheworld.com/mentorship. You can find it. She'll be on our platform to talk with you, and you can get all this wisdom and advice from her. And so, guys, get in there if you want to see more of her. Thank you all.
Thank
Amy,
you.
thank you for being on tonight.
Thank you
This
so
is
much.
night 2 of Meet Your Mentor Week.
All right.
And we'll see you again. Thank you so much. I appreciate you taking the time to be with us. That was awesome. Thank you, Amy.
You're welcome.
Yep. And thank you all of Upset the Gram and Mentor_Jew for joining us. Again, super sorry. Instagram's not letting me be great. So I'm hijacking. Anyways, I love you all. I hope you have a great Friday. You guys come back and we'll be here tomorrow night at 8. Okay. Love you guys. Bye.